this beautiful young lady. Her name is Melody Horrill. Peter, you would know Melody.
We worked together many years, yes. So when it was 7, Channel 7 was...
And they did a strange flip, changing 7 to 10.
They changed the signs out the front and the stationery, and we didn't move.
I still think that was quite psychologically traumatic. One day you were one thing, the next day you were the next, the other.
Yeah.
She's on the line. Melody, how are you?
Hello, Jeremy. How lovely to speak with you again after all these years.
I know. It's been a long, long time.
It has.
But you haven't stood still. I sort of thought for some reason you were still in town, but you've gone to Melbourne.
I came to Melbourne several years ago, really. It was for my partner's work. That's why we ended up here. I'm here at the moment.
At the moment, you are keeping your powder dry.
I am indeed. Look, Melbourne's been very good to me in many ways. Of course, Adelaide will always be home. Will always be home no matter where I go. But, Grant's work is important to him, so this is why we're here. And it's been a great experience for me, I have to say. It's good to live in other parts of the world, I think, in other states, just so you get a taste of the way things are done in other places.
And when you, I suppose you can still keep your hand in when it comes to television, here and there, doing bits and pieces.
Oh, I'm a bit of an old hack now, Jeremy. I mean,
it's called experience.
I know that, but I'm in my 50s now, so I'm not sure that TV is a place for me to be anymore. But
Peter,
I don't disagree. What an outrage, Melody! Smack.
Goodness me. Come back to Adelaide where you're appreciated.
I think it's a little different. I think that it is a little different for men and women. Unfortunately, I think it is actually still. And, I've always loved TV. I loved my time in broadcast media. But I've been doing many other things since, and it's really widened my world. So I'm really quite grateful for all those experiences I've had post-TV.
Well, you were in television and the media, because you did work at 3AW for a while as well.
I did. I was there when I first moved to Melbourne, freelance actually, for 12 months. And I have to say that even though I was only there for 12 months, they welcomed me like family. And I'm still in contact with a lot of people at 3AW. Lovely bunch of people, and just really loyal to their former employees and employers. I felt that was the experience I've certainly had with them, and it's nice to feel part of a family that never forgets you.
Yes, no.
So
absolutely,
they've been terrific.
Yeah, they're very, very professional, and as you say, loyal to the people who work there, which gives people who work there a sense of loyalty back in return. But
it does, and I always like chatting with them. I've had the opportunity actually to speak with them twice within a week about my latest book. And I popped into the studio on Saturday and sat down with the wonderful Darren James, who's just such a nice fella. That's where
I heard you. That's where I heard you. Yeah.
Yeah, genuinely good guy, funny, so talented. And it was just such a joy to sit in the studio with him again and, chew over things and chat about my book and have a laugh. And he's just a decent man.
When did the writing of books kick in? You sat down one day and thought, I'm going to write a book.
I wish it was that simple. I'd always wanted to write books since I was a little girl, because I used to love reading books, but I never thought I'd be able to do it. I never had the confidence. Never thought I'd get there. And, my years in journalism, of course, you write, but it's a different style of writing, very short form, punchy, just completely different. And it's a very long story, so I'll try and cut it as short as possible for you. But when I heard about the Port River Dolphins in strife, I think it was 2020, and they were dying, and I just thought, geez, I need to sort of step back in and try and do something about this. So I contacted the Weekend Australian, And I said to them, would you like me to write a story about the Port River Dolphins and in particular my relationship with one dolphin called Jock? Now, I'd never really spoken about this publicly. A lot of people knew about my background in the media, but I'd never really spoken publicly about my, early life, and certainly not my relationship with Jock, because it's something really unusual and difficult for some people to grasp. So I wrote that story, and lo and behold, they printed it. They printed the whole thing, and I had this 4-page colour spread. And for me, it was all about putting the focus back onto the dolphins and trying to show everybody how special these marine mammals are. It was about showcasing the importance of protecting them and how very much like us they are in so many ways, their intelligence, complex societies, and why we need to protect them. So that's actually why I wrote that article. And then, of course, I had quite a positive response from that article, and an old colleague of mine from Adelaide read it and contacted me, and he said, listen, I'm retired now, but I've written a couple of books and I do a bit of editing. I do think you should write a book. And I thought about writing this book for years and years and years, but once again thought there's no way I can write a book. I mean, it's such a huge undertaking. And I wasn't sure that I actually had the skills to do it. But he said, oh, just give it a crack. Just start writing. Just start. So I did. And I was, amazed that I was able to do it and then, create something that I was proud of. And even more amazed when it was picked up by Allen and Unwin, an Australian publisher. And then my amazement exploded really after it was picked up by another publisher overseas, and it was republished under a different title across the world. And the amazing Dr. Jane Goodall endorsed it.
Wow.
A series of remarkable events. And
why do you think they changed the name?
Oh, look, I think it was because it was just for different audiences. It was for the British and the US audience, and they just wanted something different. And they changed the image on the front cover as well. It's the same book, essentially, although they didn't print most of the photos that were in the original Australian version of the book. But I was just pleased that it was going to a much broader audience, and that I'd hoped that it would have an impact for dolphins, outside of Australia, and actually people too. So yeah, I was pretty chuffed and quite blown away.
I always knew you had it in you, young lady.
Which Peter am I speaking to?
Peter Sellen.
Oh, Peter Sellen. Hello, Pete.
I remember me.
Goodness. Oh, of course. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, you're a much more prolific author than I. I wrote a modest book about my fun and exciting adventures in the Navy, and segued into the media with some of the carry-on that used to happen for that. So I'm not a global author yet. I'm just a local yokel.
There's nothing wrong with that, Pete. And, writing a book is, as I said, it's a huge undertaking, a big commitment of time. In fact, I ended up leaving my full-time position at the time when I was working for a media and communication manager for a federal government agency, and to write the book, because I knew that I just couldn't really commit myself to doing that properly and work full-time at the same time. I just couldn't do it. So, yeah, and I've kept going.
What do you think it is about dolphins and whales that so, captivate, mesmerize people, capture their interest?
I think it's a variety of different things. I think, again, there's a part of us that sort of recognises their intelligence, their sentience. They're beautiful, graceful creatures. And, they can live in pods of, certainly dolphins, of hundreds of individuals. So they're quite social, and they bond. They form deep bonds with one another in their family. So I think we resonate with that. And also, I'd like to think that they're very much the ambassadors of the sea. I mean, we're land animals at the end of the day, and it's really hard to connect with things out in the ocean, I think. But because dolphins live so close to the coast, you can stand on a beach and watch them. So there's that connection there that you don't necessarily have with something living under the sea, like, I don't know, an octopus or a fish.
Or Peter Sellen when he was in a submarine.
Yes. Yes.
There's that too.
Yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum.
So that's what I think. And I think it's wonderful. I think that they also teach us, when you watch them swim in the bow of a boat, just leap out and splash down on the water, there's this joy, this effervescence, and just love for playing. And I think they bring out the joy in us.
Yeah, you get the impression they like us too.
Yeah, you do. And I'm not sure that we always reciprocate,
No,
to be honest.
But you bonded.
I did.
I get the feeling when you say the dolphin who saved me. I mean, was there a traumatic period in your life that depended on this dolphin called Jock?
I went through a pretty ordinary childhood in many respects. Look, I don't consider myself to be a victim, let me say that up front. I actually think I've been really quite victorious given the circumstances that I've sort of had. But, my mother and father, there was a lot of domestic violence in the house, and we came out to Australia when I was about 7 or 8, and I'd hoped that the awful violent fighting between the two of them would sort of end, but it didn't. It escalated, and in the end, I talked my mum into leaving the family home. My two sisters had decided to stay in the UK rather than come out with the family because they just didn't want any more of it. And I completely understand that. So it was just my brother, myself, my mother and my father. And when we left, Dad found out where we were living and started stalking us. And one day, the police told Mum that, it might be best if you two separate, so, the risk would be less. So she moved out and moved in with someone else. And I stayed in the flat alone. I had to drop out of school at this point. I'd only gotten to year 11, but I had to drop out of school to work because I had to pay my way suddenly. And so one day, Dad turned up when Mum was dropping off some washing because I didn't even have a washing machine back then. And he caught her unaware and he attacked her. He stabbed her. And I was the only witness to it. And to cut a very long story short, he was obviously charged by police. And a wonderful detective by the name of Peter Dunstan really took me under his wing and looked after me. He was just, I can't say enough good things. I mean, I know police often get a bad rap, but he was just my rock. He was fantastic. And then, of course, Dad went to court and I had to testify against him because I was a witness. I was only quite young at the time. And he was sent to jail. And when he came out of jail, a short time later, he took his own life.
Oh.
So, after that sort of episode, I just wasn't quite sure how to face the world, really. I was pretty lost myself and didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I'd actually, in the interim, gone back and completed my year 12 part-time. I decided to put myself through university and to change my own life. I didn't want to repeat of what had happened with my parents. So I made it my mission to change circumstances for myself, get myself an education. But
well, you're a very brave woman, Mel.
Oh, thank you. I don't think so. I think there are people that are in much worse situations than that. But I made the conscious choice. I really did to just try and create a better outcome for myself. But I had some pretty deep scars and some issues that I hadn't dealt with, although the outside world wouldn't know it. I crafted this party girl exterior and I wouldn't let anybody in. I didn't trust anybody. I'd never had a unconditional relationship. I just, my pets at home were the only things that I really found love with in many ways and comforted me, which is where the connection with animals really started.
Understandable.
And so that's when I volunteered for research program with Dr. Mike Bosley, who was one of my lecturers at university.
Oh, yes.
And that's how I ended up meeting Jock. And Jock was a solitary dolphin who lived in the Port River, and really unusual because dolphins are really very social mammals. And there he was a solitary dolphin, and he befriended the research team, Mike and the research team. And all he'd do was just circle this boat constantly and just break off to feed. He had a very badly deformed dorsal fin, a healed spear wound on his side from where he'd been speared previously by somebody. He had scars around his mouth. And I remember the first time I saw him, I just felt connected. He was this lonely dolphin who seemed so, I don't know, rudderless. He just was disconnected with the world around him and so badly scarred. And in many ways, his external scars reflected my internal ones that I still hadn't dealt with. And I got to know him as an individual. And throughout that, I learned an awful lot. He was my greatest teacher, this dolphin. He trusted me despite the fact that my species, humans, had inflicted so much pain on him. I guess that taught me about forgiveness, the importance of forgiveness and living with my scars and acceptance. And his friendship just wasn't conditional. He wasn't fed. He wasn't cajoled. He just wanted to hang out because he liked the company and my company. And that was so very different to any relationship I'd ever experienced in my life before. There were no strings attached with my friendship with Jock. And he trusted me without question. And so I learnt the value of trust. And he helped me realise that I was actually okay and worthy. I think that's the word, worthy, to be around. I was good enough. And I really rediscovered joy and the importance of living in the moment with him. And instead of the sadness and the bitterness of the past, I just chose to focus on the wonder of the world around me. It changed my perspective completely.
Beautiful.
And when we led Jock out, eventually he sort of followed us out to meet other dolphins. I knew that he was reluctant to do that and probably scared, but he did, and he eventually became integrated with the other dolphins in the Port River. And that taught me the value and the importance of leaving my own comfort zone and allowing myself to be vulnerable in the big wide world. So, and of course he set me on a path that would change my life forever. Because
How old were you then?
I was probably in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And, he gave me, I found my voice through him. I eventually started a not-for-profit in South Australia called the Australian Dolphin Research Foundation after I left my first full-time job out of uni pretty quickly, and I left to form this not-for-profit. I don't know how I did it. I look back on it and I think, how the hell did I do that? But, of course, I wanted to raise awareness about the dolphins and the Port River Dolphins, and I started a dolphin sponsorship scheme with Mike Bosley. And, I found myself suddenly thrust into media interviews, and then I became a spokesperson for other sort of environmental issues, and that led me to a career in the media.
Well, you should be, you could do just the most wonderful programs. I mean, you're a natural and just beautiful to listen to. And your new book, tell me about Sheltered, your new book.
Sheltered yes, thank you. It's my new book. It was published by Ultimo Press, so a different publisher published this one. And it's really a compilation of real-life love stories that showcase the deep connections and devotions between people and their rescue animals. It's really a book about love and hope. And each story explores how the rescue animal, whether it's a dog or a cat or a horse or a donkey or rabbit, even ferret, impact the lives, ferrets, because I really wanted to include other animals, other companion species, not just dogs and cats, because there are so many companion animal species that have positive impacts on our life and who need our help, quite frankly. So I learnt actually through writing this book that so often that when we help animals heal from trauma, we often help ourselves too, because most of the animals in this book come from pretty bad situations where they've been abandoned, mistreated, surrendered, or, handed over, but each of them blossoms into just these beautiful, loving companions that have this profound impact on the people who adopt or care for them, and in some cases even save their lives. So after I decided to actually write the book after the COVID lockdowns had finished, and I heard about the huge numbers of animals going back to shelters around Australia, people going back to their normal lives, and they were just giving back the animals, and more were just being, handed over. And then, of course, the cost of living crisis hit. And even more animals, shelters were bursting at the seams with these unwanted, discarded animals. And I thought, I just have to do something about this. And I knew that I had my voice, and I knew that I could write. And I wanted to give something back to the animals that had given me so much in my life, not just dolphins, but, dogs, cats, horses. And I had a debt of gratitude, really. And I just wanted to give something back. So, and I hoped that the book would lead to more people considering adopting an animal, or even supporting these charities and not-for-profits that really get very little, if any, support from the government. Yes. They rely on people's generosity. And it's such a big issue.
Melody, you're a beautiful person. You are truly a beautiful person, and a gifted broadcaster, may I say.
Bless you.
One of the things that we do at the end of the show, towards which we are heading now, is we go out to the Animal Welfare League and talk to Anthony, and he picks a pet of the week. And it could be anything. It could be a ferret or a rabbit. I don't think he does birds. But we here at the dining room table, in the court of public opinion, love animals. We love animals. Sometimes they're so much nicer than people. I don't know.
I think that animals actually, they teach us a lot. They teach us to be selfless and vulnerable, and we drop our guard around them, and we show that unconditional love and acceptance. And, I think that animals help our hearts just to rest a moment in a world full of conflict and pain and all these awful things. They just, when you pet an animal, spend time with an animal, your heart rests.
That's right. Yeah, your blood pressure goes down. It's just very important.
It does.
Peter, do you have a pet?
Important. I have a rescue cat at the moment called Q, and I've had him for 15 years. So he's been my constant riding companion. He stays curled up at my feet as I tap away with it.
Why did you call him Q?
Well, most people think it's a James Bond thing, but it's not. No. I'm a massive Star Trek fan. And Q is the omnipotent being in Star Trek that's really mischievous and yet is all powerful and just pops up in random places. And I don't know, it just seemed to suit him.
Well, sheltered is available, and so is a dolphin called Jock, I imagine.
Yes.
Are you writing another book?
Look, I've been approached to co-write a couple of books, actually. I've written 3 books in 3 years, and I feel at the moment I'm just taking a short break because, it can be taxing, especially when you write books from the heart, which is what I do. And so I need to get the creative juices flowing again. And so I'm considering co-writing one of those books. And one of them is with Professor Marchie Hedderberg, who's an amazing man who lives in Adelaide. And he's sort of approached me to co-author a book with him. And, so I might just do that. But at the moment, I'm just taking a short writing break.
You could do a cat named Q.
I've already written that.
Okay.
That's my second, A Cat Called Q in the Magic Globe is my second book, but my first young adult fantasy. That was published by a US publisher, so that's already out there.
Right. You're quite prolific.
I was going to say, blimey, Charlie, you never slow down.
But you're lost to this business because there are very few people who can do what you do.
Oh, thank you. I really, that means a lot coming from you, Jeremy. You're an amazing broadcaster. And
I'm still alive.
The greatest compliment.
Yes,
I know you are.
I refuse to lie down.
Good. Well, I feel the same. So we're similar in that respect.
Wonderful to talk to you, Melody.
Lovely to chat.
Bless
Thank you.
Let me know.
Bless you too.
Let me know when you get the next book out.
I will indeed. And see you, Pete. Lovely chatting.
See you. Bye-bye.
All the best. Melody Horrill, ladies and gentlemen.